This is Cranked and Ranked. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Whoa!
You know what? This is already off to a bad start because I'm pretty sure you went into a later day Misfits whoa, and I can't.
It was the first one I thought of. Okay,
I was doing my impression of when I think it's in the Evil Live album where every song is started off way faster than it actually goes. So it's like, this is called 20 Eyes. What do they vote? Do. Yeah. Doesn't matter what song it is. They go, what do they vote? Anyway, hi, everyone. Cranked and Ranked. Yes, that's what you're listening to. We are a podcast where we rank rock and metal and other music-related shit. And today, we're going to be ranking the discography of the classic punk. I'm just going to say they're punk in general because there's some of their stuff you could throw a little bit of the hardcore punk at, John, and some things, some pop punk. So anyway, the band is Misfits. I know they've started to be referred to as the Misfits, but I always thought that they were just called Misfits. But
see, I thought it was the other way around. I thought they started as the Misfits and then they dropped the.
You're probably right, but I've always just referred to them as Misfits because the Misfits sounds weird. Anyway, So hi, yes, we're ranking the Misfits, and it is me, your old pal Steven, a.k.a. Old Head. With me, as always, is Sir Eddie James Sparxx Esquire. Hello, sir.
Yo.
I called you sir. I knighted you for this episode. And that's only because
I responded with yo.
that's only because you're now a celebrity. For those of you who don't know, Eddie Sparxx. Eddie Sparxx was on the Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, and
I was.
And he unfortunately they didn't invite him in to sit on the couch. But
one day.
He was go find it if you it's out there. So I don't know how they would even search for it.
It's one of the Show Me Something Good segments. So it'll be in that playlist, and I think it's got it. I can't remember the thumbnail specifically. I think they've got the guy with the straw on the front.
Which sucks because it's got a synopsis and it doesn't include you in the synopsis, and I'm just like, well, fuck those people then.
Well, it would just be unfair on all the other episodes because people would immediately click on me.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And so he was on there and didn't get a chance to plug the podcast, but apparently they keep a pretty tight ship over there with logos and whatnot. And it's not like we even have T-shirts because that's that would have been my first thought is why didn't we make T-shirts just so he can wear them when he's on Jimmy Fallon. Anyway.
We need to start combing through all of our inside jokes and just turn it into merch because that shit sells, dude.
That's true. I mean, I've been real weary of making merch just because like I see other people that have very few followers and they're like, oh, I have merch now, and I'm all like, why? Because I'm like, I mean, sure, on YouTube, I'm almost at 9,000 subscribers, but that still seems very small to be all like, I got merch. And so, I don't know. If you're listening to this, put some comments on YouTube and tell me if you would even buy merch from me or from Cranked and Ranked or Eddie Sparxx.
Speaking of merch,
yes.
I was going to say, Misfits has a shit ton of merch.
That's true. The Misfits, or Misfits. Fuck the band we're talking about today have a lot of merch. That's true. They are like a Hot Topic staple. You go to Hot Topic, you're going to see a Misfits shirt in there, I'm sure. So the Misfits has a weird I'm just going to call them the Misfits. I realize that it just rolls out that way. They have an odd discography because, especially in the Danzig era of Misfits, they've got a whole lot of shit, but only, 2 actual albums that came out at the time. And that's pretty interesting. So I don't know. So we decided just to stick to the actual albums that were released instead of doing collections and EPs and singles and all that stuff, which ends up leaving us with 7 albums, and 3 of them are Danzig era albums, and the rest are post Danzig Misfits stuff. And yeah, so this is going to be a really fun one because the Misfits are a fun band, and I'm ready to jump into this. So the way that we normally do this is we start off by talking about where we came on board with the Misfits, and I have a feeling that our stories are exactly the same, only they happened at completely different times. Because, like many people, my introduction to the Misfits was Metallica. I saw Metallica wearing Misfits shirts. They covered Last Caress and Green Hell on Garage Days Revisited. And so it probably was early 1992. And I remember going to Tower Records, and on cassette, I bought the first Misfits collection, which at the time was, just referred to as Misfits. Because I just remember seeing it and being like, oh, it's like a green little skull thing on the front. It just says Misfits, and it's got a shitload of songs, including Green Hell. I'm going to buy this. And and I was instantly a fan. Like, I was like, well, shit, no wonder they're into this band. This is fun as fuck. And so that was my introduction to the Misfits. How about you, sir?
Yeah, mine was kind of hearing the Metallica covers that they did.
Uh-huh.
But funnily enough, I actually came onto them with the Graves albums, which my friend Matt, who went to the same high school as me, he was a huge Misfits fan, but he actually liked Graves' voice more. His vocals, maybe not his political views, but hey ho.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know anything about Michael Graves' political views. I'm sure I don't want to know. I'm pretty sure there was something tied. Now, this is not me throwing accusations around if it ain't true, but I heard something about Proud Boys and the Capitol storming. Oh my
so
God, okay.
Similar to the Iced Earth thing, but yeah, I'm keeping it strictly focused on the music here.
You know what? But you know what? It always comes around, though. It makes me feel better because I'm just gonna go ahead and give everyone a little hint. The gloves are off today, ladies and gentlemen. Because very rarely do I go into full shit talking mode, but today that is going to change. Just for a little treat for you out there. So yeah, okay, so let's jump right into it because it's 7 albums, and I'm going to be referring to other releases along the way, just because it's weird. Like, when we're talking about the later albums, it's not the same thing. But when we get to Danzig stuff, it's so interesting the number of different versions of songs and songs that were recorded along with other songs but aren't on a particular album. Like, it's just like I said, the discography is pretty wacky. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. And as usual, I throw it over to Eddie Sparxx, television superstar, to tell us what his number 7, his bottom Misfits album is.
Okay, so my number 7 Misfits album is Project 1950.
Alrighty.
So this is a cover album indulging their obvious influences from 50s doo-wop stuff. And, I don't really have much to say about each track. That's why I haven't really done track by track for this one. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on this one. But I'd probably say the same thing for every track. That's the thing. It's a fun 25 minutes of cheesy 50s covers done in their punky horror punk style, but that's all it is. Plus, I think of the vocalists that Misfits has had, Jerry Only is probably the weakest because he kind of sits somewhere in between Danzig and Graves and never really goes hard on either. He's just kind of a little bit middle of the road with it.
Does he sing on this? Is he the vocalist on Project 1950?
Yeah, he's the vocalist on this one.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
the vocals are pretty awful.
Yeah, it really, it's an album I've listened to maybe like 2 or 3 times just for the novelty of, hey, I want to hear Latest Flame, but I want to hear it done in a rock style, or like a more hard rocking kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside from that, there's not really anything essential here. It's just a fun little footnote in their history. But yeah, it's like a lot of covers albums that we cover on this show. It usually ends up at the bottom. But yeah, there's a way to do it right, and it was a fun experiment, but I can't in all good conscience rank it any higher than the bottom, really, on this one.
Yeah. I'm with you. That Project 19. I mean, duh. Of course, it's my number 7. Covers albums usually end up being the bottom in my lists, and just because I'm so happy with how I worded my notes that I wrote down about this album. I'm gonna read it word for word what I wrote for what I think about Project 1950.
Ding ding.
Pure shit. That's what I wrote. I wrote pure shit. Pure, unadulterated, complete nonsense. Covers albums are already usually pretty weak because very few bands can cover songs and make them better. And I was already done with this album. And then they covered fucking Monster Mash.
Yeah, they kind of ascended to... It's almost like a parody of themselves at that point.
It is just utter shit. And that is my...
I don't think I've ever seen you in such disbelief at how bad something is before.
Because it's every single part of it. Like, the versions of the songs are awful, but the vocals are also just... I just can't do it. And I did it once, and I will never, ever do it again. My number 7, Project 1950.
I love when they're like...
From 2003. 2003 is when this album came out. Go ahead.
I'd love to have seen your face when, like, any saxophone part showed up.
That's the least offensive thing on the album.
Yeah, well, it's just that, like, brief reprieve where you're like, oh, look, something that's tolerable.
I think that my why I feel this strongly about this album will make more sense when I go in depth about my feelings on the other more recent Misfits albums, but this one doesn't deserve any more of our time. So let's go ahead and move on to your number 6 Misfits album.
Cool. So my number 6 is Devil's Rain.
Devil's Rain.
Some stay dry and others feel the pain. Oh, dude.
From 2011 is this album.
We should do an episode of, like, top 10 early internet bangers at some point.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm down for that.
It's going to be but Charlie Bit Me, number 1. So this is the last album they did, right? Devil's Rain?
Yeah.
Okay, in
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay. Clearly there's not much of a demand. Well, I guess the Misfits did kind of reunite because isn't it now like Danzig and Doyle and Jerry only? Is all 3 of them?
It's largely back to the way it was.
Back to Walk Among Us era, and then unfortunately they don't have Robo on drums. But wait, Robo didn't play on that? Robo played on Earth AD, I think. Anyway, but they did get a fucking killer drummer for their reunion. I mean, like it's like what better drummer to get than the drummer of Slayer? I mean, I guess he's not currently no one's the drummer of Slayer right now, but whatever. But that was like, honestly, like I didn't, when they announced that they reunited, at first I went, I don't fucking care. But then I saw some footage and I was like, that looks pretty fun. I think I would enjoy that. Anyway, Devil's Rain.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yes, that's cool. Speaking of like metal guys being involved, I will give this album one thing. It has like parts where I think this is a speed metal song, and I'll get to it.
Okay.
But I think this is the only album from them that has guitar solos and double kick on it as well.
I mean, yeah, I guess, especially their classic stuff, I don't remember there being any kind of guitar solo whatsoever.
Yeah. So without further ado,
oh, they had there's a one note solo on We Are 138, I think. One or two notes. I'm pretty sure it goes
that's punk as fuck, bro.
Hell yeah. That was some virtuosic kind of shit back in the punk days.
Holy shit, you can play a trill? Hell yeah. So yeah, Devil's Reign, it's an okay opener. It's nothing crazy good. It's okay. Vivid Red is a bit better. It just feels like Graves era, but without, with a bit less edge.
But by the way, this also has Jerry Only on vocals.
This is a Jerry Only.
In fact, Jerry's the only original member in this on this album. Get it? Jerry Only. He's the only one. Well, I guess he isn't even an original member. He is from. I guess most people would consider the Walk Among Us lineup the quintessential lineup. I guess, wouldn't you say? Like people would point to that.
Yeah, holy shit. He's like the only guy.
He's literally Jerry Only.
Damn.
I'm gonna run that joke into the ground.
Okay, so you get Vivid Red. It's a bit better, but it just feels like Graves without the edge.
Yeah.
Land of the Dead is a pretty energetic track. I'll admit the track's increase in quality, in my opinion, as the album goes on. I think it's just Jerry Only's vocals. Because, again, like I say, they're a bit too middle of the road between Danzig and Graves to do either end of the spectrum enough oomph.
Mm-hmm.
Black Hole, I enjoyed this song probably because of the woes in there. Twilight of the Dead is back in meh territory for the most part, but the guitar solo was a cool touch. It's not often you get a solo from this band, if at all. Curse of the Mummy's Hand is okay. To be honest, like a lot of this album to me, it's not offensive to my ears, but I think that's the biggest sin of all, is just not being very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Cold in Hell is fun. I like this song. Unexplained is okay. Dark Shadows, pretty good, but lacking energy. Father has a bit of Maiden influence in there. Jack the Ripper is a full-on speed metal track. I will say the double kick on it is cool, and it's nice to see a band that influenced thrash have a crack at it themselves. Monkey's Paw is a fun track. Where Did He Go has some seriously cheesy leftover 50s female backing vocals left on it. Sleepwalking is alright. Ghost of Frankenstein is okay, and Death Ray is fine. Like it's all adjectives for inoffensive, really.
They just put a sticker on the front of the album that says, Eddie Sparxx says this album is okay, fine, and pretty okay.
That's the thing. It's the redeeming qualities are the tracks I enjoy, but the rest of it is just it's a very filler album for me. And that's why it's number 6. It has redeeming qualities, so it's not number 7, but yeah. I can't wait for you to tear it a new asshole.
Yeah, which I'm going to do right now, because it's also my number 6 album, The Devil's Reign. Honestly, before we did this ranking, I didn't even know this album existed. And so I was like, wow, what's this? And so let me just say that. So I am admittedly not a fan of the Michael Graves era of the Misfits. And I didn't think it could get any worse. And it did. It got a lot worse. And so, I mean, so now you've got only Jerry Only. And I guess for a little bit of cred, he brought in Des Cadena, who was back in the day was in Black Flag.
Yeah.
But this is just an album that should not exist, because I really think, especially if this is the last thing that the Misfits name that's original material that comes out, this is just, it's shitting on the legacy.
It is pretty. It's kind of going out on a whimper if that is the case. I will admit.
Yeah, but I just think that the performances and the songwriting, like everything, just is so not good that this is effectively. Like at this point, if you're gonna take the legacy of the Misfits and put the name on this album, you might as well just throw the name the Misfits in the urinal, because this is piss poor. That's all I have to say. I mean, I tried to be a little bit fair, because I'm just like, okay, well, is this really that awful? But we're literally talking. We're talking in the context of ranking this album along with absolutely classic punk albums, and this is just like it's like a turd in the cookie dough. It's just like it's like get it the fuck out of there. It's ruining it. So yeah, it was really hard to get through this album for me, because it just seemed, I don't know what it is, but it's, I would have just put it out as Jerry Only and the Dudes, or some other name, because at this point you're literally just trying to get people to buy an album because it says Misfits on it, and it can continue to tour under the name and make money or whatever the fuck, you know. I'm sure Jerry Only is a great guy. I don't know anything about him, but sometimes you just need somebody to tell you that you're not doing good enough. And so that's why I'm here. So The Devil's Rain, number 6, it is just, I mean, I'll listen to this over Project 1950 any day, but but I'm going to be bitching and moaning the entire time. So there we go. Number 6, The Devil's Rain. That's good. Sometimes I feel like I could do voiceover work, because sometimes the other day, like I just randomly talking to my daughter, I did a spot on Joker, like you know how the Joker is voiced by Mark Hamill, like his version of the Joker.
Yeah.
I did a spot on one of those, and I went, that sounded really good. Maybe I should be doing some kind of voice work on animation, but I don't know. Probably not.
We should do an entire episode where I do my Dave Mustaine impression and we pass it off as an interview.
We should.
But I just start beef with every band ever.
Edit this out, because I want everyone to think it's real. And then we'll also bring you on, and you'll do Lars. We'll just have it'll be a conversation between Dave and Lars that I'm like in the middle of. You know, it'll be fun.
Dave, so what do you think of Justice? I wrote it.
And scene.
Yeah.
All right, so on to our number 5. I don't know why I did that. I was probably because I'm looking for my notes. And I found them. Number 5. What is your number 5 Misfits album?
There is one last thing I want to say about Devil's Rain, just to completely ruin that segue right there.
All right, cool.
Is it me, or is like every song on this album 10 to 15 BPM too slow? I feel like
it's very awkward.
Like it feels like they shit the bed on like every click track they had on the album.
Yeah.
Like they were like, okay, so it needs to be this pace, and they dialed in some random number, and it was like, oh, this doesn't sound like the rehearsal.
Well, we already have the presets in. Just fucking play it.
We already programmed the drums, dude.
All right, number 5.
Where am I at? So this is the turning point.
Yeah, I think we're gonna are all of a sudden our lists are gonna be different from now on.
Yeah, like the proverbial gloves are off. Feel free to start wailing on me from here on in.
Okay.
My number 5 is Static Age.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Right. So it's technically their debut, but it wasn't properly released until 1996.
Yeah.
And
Some
it's also,
some of the songs were released as singles.
yeah,
But not the idea of this as an album was scrapped.
yeah. But it was recorded in 78, and we can enjoy it now. So without further ado, Static Age,
Yeah.
right out of the gate, definitely the most pure old school 70s punk album they've got. I feel like they went on to develop their own take on it on the next two albums, but this one here, there's still a lot of residual other original punk stuff left laying around. TV Casualty is an up-tempo track. Some Kind of Hate is a fun one. Last Caress, absolute tune. I mean, I love Metallica's version of it too, but, you know, they wrote it. They wrote it. Return of the Fly. This one feels a bit fast and a bit slow for some reason. Like, I don't know what it is.
And repetitive too.
Yeah. Hybrid Moments. There's something about the way Misfits write songs about dark stuff in major keys that consistently puts a smile on my face. Like,
Yeah.
They play fun music. We Are 138, one of the catchiest songs on the album, and has my favorite chord sequence in it. Da, 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 da. I call it the Maiden progression. If you ever want to,
which eventually would be the major chord progression in a song called "Mother" by Danzig. It all comes around full circle.
Mother. We're gonna get copyright claimed for that. Like just that one. Right, Teenagers from Mars, another extremely catchy one. Come Back is quite a long one for a Misfits track, coming in at 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like
and it's slow for a Misfits song.
Yeah, it's rare they exceed the 2.5 minute mark.
I love that song though. It's very well done.
Yeah, Angel Fuck is a fun track. I'm kind of worried about that being added to my dictionary on Word, like, because I every time I put a word in there that it doesn't recognize, I just put add to dictionary. So I bet one day I'm gonna put some like horrendous typo and it's gonna correct to that. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Hollywood Babylon is a driving rocker. Attitude is a fast, fun one. Bullet is a wild track, very descriptive of Kennedy's death.
Yeah.
Theme for a Jackal is a cool ascending riff with some piano in the mix too. She, fun, catchy punk rocker. Spinal Remains, thrashy, bashy track. And In the Doorway, I just put moody punk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool album. It's definitely the one I've spent the least amount of time with. But there are songs on it that I've heard countless times.
Yeah.
But it's the deep cuts of this album really are the ones I haven't really heard that many times. So it's probably why I've got the least relationship to. But
and
the next,
it's interesting because when that was originally released as an album, finally, it was part of the Misfits box set that came out that was like shaped like a coffin and had some CDs and it had both collections and a bunch of other shit. But the album only went through Theme for a Jackal. Like that was the last track on the album. So that's always been the last song to me because I'm just like, oh, that's the last song on this album. And then when they finally released it as a standalone album, they tacked on extra shit. So it's interesting because I'm all like, oh, I forgot those songs are on there too. But that's fine because those songs are also good.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's my number 5, and I'm pretty sure what album you may come in with next.
It's probably not exactly as you think it's going to be, but in that arena, my number 5 is American Psycho from 1997, which that's the first one with Michael Graves. And the first one where, the Misfits, quote unquote, came back, which honestly, I don't know how this ever even was successful because I didn't know anybody that wanted this album or liked this album. Because you have to remember, like, this is 1997, which is a year after they had released the Misfits box set with all the original stuff and Static Age for the first time. And there was a lot of like, the Misfits, they were this classic band and, more people should know about them. And then it's like, oh, by the way, here's a new Misfits. But guess what? It's this other dude singing who sings nowhere near as good as Glenn Danzig does and doesn't even have as unique of a voice as Danzig does. And so what you end up getting here with American Psycho, by 1997, there were already tons of bands who were ripping off the Misfits. And now the Misfits are ripping off the Misfits. And so, and the problem with this is that, sure, the original Misfits songs from a music standpoint, from guitar riffs, aren't very interesting. They're real simple shit. But something about it where them trying to do it later on, and I'm guessing that Danzig had a hand in writing a lot of stuff because, he plays guitar, he writes. So, I mean, I know that he probably did. Yeah. But their version of the Misfits is like some of the most basic bitch pop punk that, like, literally there were like 200 bands around this time that sounded exactly like this. And all they did was write these really generic punk songs and then said, all right, well, we're the Misfits, so make sure you insert a whoa right here. And so, and it literally became this cookie cutter kind of like, well, here's the template for Misfits songs, and now we're going to make an album. And it's pretty damn bad. Now, if they had switched singers to Michael Graves and they had decided to make this a new chapter with the Misfits and they had done something a little different, like had a different approach, I would have no problem with it, and I might even like it. But what you end up getting is literally a band wearing a Misfits Halloween costume and going on stage and pretending to be the Misfits. I don't care how many people in it were actually in the Misfits. At this point, it's cosplay. You're literally just playing cosplay as far as I'm concerned. Not only in your look, but in your music. And on top of that, it's weird because his name is spelled Mikhail Graves, but he goes by Michael.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, Michael Graves' voice is not powerful enough to have the Misfits name on it. Because that was the thing about Glenn Danzig is you had these kind of cool little simple punky songs, but he had this massive voice. Like, it was very commanding, and even when he was just yelling, it's still just, he had his own thing going. Nobody sounded like Danzig. And Michael Graves just sounds like another bloke who sings in a punk band. And so you get 17 tracks of this. And I've always said this when it comes to punk music. If you don't spend a lot of time writing the songs, you can write a lot of songs. And that's exactly what this album is. I don't think they really spent that much time thinking about what they were doing. I think they probably saw an opportunity to continue the band while there was momentum and make some fucking money. And more power to them. That is their decision, but it is also my decision to think that this album is an abomination. Nowhere near as bad as Devil's Rain. I'm going to give it that. And you know what? Here's a positive. I'm going to sprinkle a little positivity on the top. It's well produced. I'll give it that. Sounds good. Sonically sounds pretty good.
I think that's where, for me, I tend to like these albums a little more. I'm a respectfully disagree with the abomination comment. But yeah, for me, like, as a metal guy coming in on the Misfits, when it comes to a production standpoint, the two Graves era ones are probably the most palatable production-wise in terms of if you want a loud guitar sound.
Yeah.
That era tends to have what I would say is the best production Misfits had. But
I think that when it comes to the Misfits, I think that does the sound a disservice, because the great thing about the original Misfits stuff is that some of it was pretty okay recorded, but most of it pretty bad. But it gave it that aura of discovery.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is like this is underground shit. They couldn't even get into a really good studio where you have to hear the producer being like, "All right, take one," in the background and shit like that. And so that always was a character in the music to me, where I'm like, originally they were a band. I think that they only played Halloween. Like they only played at Halloween, and then they had this mystique about them, and they put out singles, and I just think that what they accomplished, by the time I was in high school and really into the Misfits before this album ever came out, they had created this great classic band that was pretty unfuckwithable, even though all their shit isn't amazing. But just the idea of them was like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. So that if it was left at that, I would see a Misfits shirt on somebody and go, fucking A, man, the Misfits. But now I want to walk up to him and be like, okay, are you wearing a Danzig Misfits shirt? Or and I know that like I'm now being one of those people that's just like, choose a side or whatever, But in this particular case, when they've literally just, it takes a band that has this mystique and this interesting quality about them, this interesting underground quality, literally underground band that became very well known to a shitload of people, and then just made them a very well known generic band. It bothers me because it's taken away like the overall feeling that I get when I think of Misfits, and now it's just like, oh, now I gotta. It's like how I felt about Bill Cosby, because like Bill Cosby, I grew up with Bill Cosby, listening to his stand-up comedy when I was a kid, watching the Cosby Show, watching Leonard Part 6, one of the worst movies ever made, but also one of the best. But now I can't enjoy any of that shit because it turns out he was a complete piece of shit. Now, this isn't that bad, but I'm giving you like the extreme of it, where like this thing that had this feeling for me, all of a sudden the feeling is kind of yanked out from under me, and I go, all right, now I gotta separate it. Now I gotta be able to separate the two. And I know that in this day and age that is a minor gripe, but that's what we do here when we nitpick at things. And so that's why I feel so strongly about it. But coming into it, when you did, it makes sense that it doesn't carry that same weight for you with what the Misfits were.
That's the thing. Like, American Psycho had already been out for a year by the time I was born.
Yeah.
So, and that little voice crack there tells you that I'm still going through puberty. But
this year, Eddie finally got pubes.
Maybe when I grow up, I'll like Danzig more. But no, it's I would say it's. I read that really long comment. That awesome guy that leaves really long comments on our stuff.
Yeah,
this is a shout out to you.
Eric Smith is his name. He's commented some lengthy comments on YouTube, but also he said some very nice things about us.
He said something along the lines of me having a clean slate to digest the previous 40 years of rock and metal. And he's 100% right, because I had, obviously compared to your generation, a unique take on it, where I was just finding all this old stuff. Quote unquote, old shit.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved stuff from the 80s, particularly the first half of the 90s and the 70s as well. But for some reason, I found Dig Up Her Bones through my friend Matt, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And I heard it and I thought, this is a fucking tune. And then I heard the whole album, and the whole album was full of songs like that. And I was like, I like this. Gee, I like this punk stuff. But yeah, that was my introduction to Misfits. So
I mean, it makes sense, because it would be the same thing if we were, I don't know, doing the ranking of the Beatles, because the Beatles were over and done well before I was born. So my I came into them where they were already like fucking legendary, and that's the way that it's presented to you. You don't discover the Beatles. It's like the Beatles discover you.
There's just like one guy with like, he totally dressed like John Lennon, but still has the battle vest on, and he's like, I only listen to 50s Beatles.
Hell, shit. But imagine if the Beatles had gotten back together with new singers and like one original, like just Ringo. It's just Ringo on the drums. And then they put out Beatle-esque music that other people are already doing Beatle-esque music. And so, there you see what I'm saying here? It's like that because it's like, people that get all pissed off about Metallica post Injustice for All.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand that because Metallica continued to they developed their sound and did different things. Now, if they had literally broken up and then gotten back together and did cookie cutter stuff that we're going to try to make Master of Puppets again, only the songwriting's not going to be very good, then I would understand the hate. I'd be like, well, yeah, because they're just shitting on their original legacy and making rehashed bullshit. But they've, I don't think they've ever done that, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, but back to the band that did do that.
Back to the lecture at hand.
Oh shit, yeah. Speaking of that, we gotta jump into some more hip hop pretty soon.
We will.
This was ordered by Eddie Sparxx, not me. It was requested. So
I've been on a binge. I've been on a G-Funk binge.
It will be related to that lyric that he just said, but you got to know your hip hop if you literally know just from that one lyric.
I'm gonna use my little talent here. You can piece that together,
and
if
a star
you're a
was
cultured
born.
individual.
All right. So wait. Did we? I had just talked about. Did we even get? Where are we?
I think your number 5 was American Psycho.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now you're number 4.
This might get me into some hot water.
What? Okay. You're number 4. Okay. All right. Okay.
My number 4. Now, bearing in mind, from here on in, I am declaring the next 4 albums banger central.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's
on my end.
I get it might make me feel better.
Okay, so it is Love Fest for me from here on in. So, number 4. Okay, cross your fingers. It's gonna be painless. Just fucking say it. Earth AD.
No, that's painful.
I'm a bad person.
That's
sacrilege.
I'm gonna let you go because of your age. If you were my age, I'd reach through the internet,
beat
and
the shit out
of me. So that's all right. Everyone has their own opinion, right? Right? Yeah, that's right.
I have the Gen Z get out of jail free card. Stupid kids, get off my lawn, Eddie.
Oh yeah. All right, Earth AD / Wolf's Blood.
Yes.
Which the original record, it was like, one side had the Earth AD cover, the other side had the Wolf's Blood cover, and I guess they were. I mean, I don't know. That's the mystique behind the shit. Was it 2 EPs put together, or could they not come up with one name for it? Because it ends up just being called Earth AD by a lot of people. But I always like to think of it as 2 EPs put together.
Yeah, there's a lot more mystique and cool urban legend style shit around the first incarnation of the Misfits.
Yep.
And so without further ado, Earth AD. This is already a meaner and heavier sound than Walk Among Us. Uh-huh. This is gnarly shit. Yeah, like if this had tremolo picking and palm mutes, it'd be a thrash song. Queen Wasp reverts back to more of a punky one. Devil Lock, another blast of heavy punk goodness. Death Comes Ripping, metal title, punk song. It's clear to see their influence on thrash bands like Metallica. Speaking of which, Green Hell is it's just a fucking badass song.
Hell
and
yeah.
I love both bands' versions. Mommy, can I go out and kill tonight? But this is a studio version of this song.
Which if I remember right, that's not originally on this album.
Yeah,
It's
this is the thing. I never
because
realized
they ended up putting the "Die Die My Darling" single on here, but then splitting up the songs where they put one in the middle and two at the end or something. It doesn't matter. It still makes a fabulous album, no matter how they want to fuck with it.
True. It's also not a very long album at all. It's like 22 minutes long, 22, 25.
And that's with the added songs.
Yeah, which is crazy, you know. Where was I? Wolf's Blood is a fun, heavy one. Demonomania is a short, fast one, like sub 45.
One of my previous bands, we covered that song. And
Nice.
it was always very fun to play because it's just literally like less than a minute long. But
Yeah, it's less than 45 seconds.
Yeah, it was awesome. Always really fun to cover that song.
Yeah, man. You got Blood Feast, which is a driving heavy track. Hellhound, pounding song, really cool.
Yeah.
Die Die My Darling, another absolute tune. Metallica did a great version too. But yeah, it's a Misfits song, so they get credit this time.
I honestly, that's one of the few Metallica songs that I will skip because
Wow.
the vocals on that just don't. It doesn't sound right. The way they double track James's, like it's. I don't know. It just sounds real cheesy to me. And
It's too well produced.
Maybe that's what it is, but I'll give them some credit because they nailed Misfits songs in the past, but that was one where I'm like, I don't know if they necessarily needed to do that one, or they could have done it a little better.
Don't cry to me, oh baby. And finally, you get We Bite, which is a fun, upbeat closer. Honestly, I have nothing bad to say about this album. It's just my love for the next three. It exceeds this one, but I do love the fucking stuff on this album. It's definitely like the craziest, I would say, one they did in terms of like ferociousness and intensity.
Yeah.
So if you like it. If you like it rough, get Earth AD / Wolf's Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
That we're not in Banger Central yet for me. We're still in Retread Central. My number 4 is Famous Monsters from 1999. I will say that this, in some ways, this is a step up from. I mean, that's why it's number 4 and not number 5. But the production is not as good as American Psycho, but the songs are better than American Psycho. And the one thing that I like is that I'm not a fan of Michael Graves, but at least his vocals sound more natural on this one. On American Psycho, it sounds like he's trying to do some kind of Danzig impression. And on this one, he sounds like he's just singing with his natural voice. And I'm like, well, good on you. Just be yourself, dude. But there's still too many damn songs, and most of it is just okay. And I honestly think, this is true for all of these later albums. If it did not have the name Misfits on it, you wouldn't know this album. We would not be talking about this album or any of these albums. That's the only reason why they ever got put in front of people. Because like I said, there were so many, especially getting later in the 90s and earlier in the 2000s, so many bands that sounded just like this. And most of them didn't get record deals. Most of them, put out independent stuff that went nowhere, or they got signed to a major label and their album completely flopped. And that probably would have been what this band would have done if they weren't called Misfits. Also, they wrote a fucking song called Fiend Club where they say, "We are the Fiend Club."
Yeah, it is pretty cheesy.
Once again, fuck off. Because it's like, we have a fan club called the Fiend Club. Let's write a song called the Fiend Club, and we'll sing "We Are the Fiend Club." And I'm like, I just want to punch them in the face. And honestly, it also just got to this point where it's almost like they were flipping through like things like what old movie or show have we not talked about yet? And I have to say, like, out of all of the later Misfits stuff, this is the most listenable album. I'm gonna give it that, but it's still not good. It is just okay. It's whatever. It didn't super offend me. If they had left off here, I'd feel a little bit differently probably about everything, but I really feel like I'm really curious to see where this band is going to go, because they continue to do these reunion things. But if Danzig decides, well, I don't want to write any new Misfits stuff, are we going to get like another Jerry only Misfits album, or like what is going to happen? Because even if they do, I don't think that they could possibly recapture any of that spark. Because I mean, honestly, like we'll do Danzig eventually, the Danzig discography. Even Danzig stuff, like the past several albums, it's just been like, oh, okay, it's a Danzig album. Woo! Like it's the whatever it is, the magic is gone. But I don't know. Famous Monsters is okay. I'll give it that. But it's there's a gigantic Grand Canyon sized space between it's a gorge between this album and then the next three that I'll be talking about, which will effectively be banger central on my end. But you only have one more album to put in the wrong spot. So let's find out where it goes. And so let's move on to your number 3.
Okay, so
he's laughing because that was an edit that was done right there. And I'm such a pro, you won't even notice.
Cool. So my number 3, I think this is like this will be the nail in the coffin when you come and kick my ass. This Walk Among Us, number 3.
All right, it's some would say the quintessential Misfits album.
There was like a brief pause there where I couldn't tell if it was the Skype lag or you were just disappointed in me, but you did not respond for like a solid 3 seconds there.
I'm just glad this isn't the first episode we did of this, because then I'd be like, I don't think I can work with this guy.
I'm glad I've got a solid year under my belt doing this thing.
Yeah. All right, Walk Among Us.
Cool. So Walk Among Us, 20 Eyes is an absolute blast of energy to start off on. Yeah. I Turned Into a Martian keeps the pace going. Like I love when they do whoa shit. So I would imagine that's probably why I like the next 2 so much, because they ran their head into the ground. But yeah, normally it can come off as a bit of a cop out, and I suppose it will be on the next few. But this is a guilty pleasure situation, but I don't feel too guilty, even though I should. No. You enjoy what you enjoy. As long as the things that you enjoy aren't things like pedophilia, then I'm perfectly fine with you enjoying whatever. It's great. Cool.
Just so you know, Cranked and Rank does not condone pedophilia
nor bestiality. I think those are two things we have condemned on this show.
We've also condemned racism,
homophobia, xenophobia,
sexism, xenophobia, transphobia,
and
all of those things are things that we do not allow in our podcast, in our midst. I don't know.
Dude, we need to do a filthy 15 of just shit we don't like. Cranked and Ranked's filthy 15. We need to do that.
Just music or anything.
I think we could do 2. All right, filthy 30.
Filthy 30. All right, but no, we're back on Walk Among Us. All right.
Okay, so All Hell Breaks Loose, heavy thrashing track. Vampira, some serious rock and roll running through this one. Nike Go-Go, it's fun, but not as memorable as previous tracks in my opinion. Hate Breeders, plenty of woes in this one. Mummy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight, live,
Live,
which is a live recording. Cool, interesting choice to slap a live track on here right in the middle. It's also a vicious song. Like it is a motherfucker. Funny because it's got "Mummy" in the title. Night of the Living Dead is a fun track with a lot of yelling out. Whoa, yeah.
Well, I think they're actually saying night, but it's all like no, like it's
Yeah.
it's really the laziest written old school Misfits song.
Oh man, Skulls is a fun song. Violent World keeps the horror punk vibes coming. Devil's Whorehouse, some odd piercing floor tom sound throughout. It's a crazy creative choice, but it's interesting. Astro Zombies. I was in a band that played this in college, and it's a tune. That's why we played it.
Super catchy song.
Yeah. Brain Eaters, fun song to go out on. In and out in 25 minutes. The good thing about this discography is that it manages to be relatively short. I mean, I think there's only like 4 hours of music across these 7 albums,
Our episode is going to be half the length of their discography.
Yeah. Which is wild to think about. But yeah, my number 3 is the outrageously catchy Walk Among Us.
So probably the only part in my ranking that I think some major Misfits fans would want to run at me with a pitchfork is the fact that my number 3 is also Walk Among Us.
Hey, we did a matchup.
I do have to admit that if somebody came to me, this is the album that if somebody said, well, what do the Misfits sound like? I would play them Walk Among Us because I think it's the best sort of like you get everything you need kind of here in this album.
Yeah.
And it's catchy as hell from beginning to end. And this is, for a lot of people, like, this is the Misfits they want to hear, which is why the Michael Graves era just literally ripped off the style of this album and did it poorly for 2 more albums and more. But here's why it's my number 3. There's a few things about it that, because we talked about a little bit, we talked a little bit about how, whether it was, I'm assuming it was all Danzig's, decisions. But, they would record songs for an album. The album wouldn't come out. They'd put out some as singles. They'd record other stuff all together, and it would go on an album, but some songs would be left out of the album, and then other songs are re-recorded later on and would end up being on Collection. Collection 2 is mostly just stuff from Static Age and other albums. But the first Collection album has different recordings of songs that are on some of these albums, and some of them I like the Collection versions of them better than the Walk Among Us versions.
Yeah.
First off, this is your first album. Why do you take a really killer song and put a live version on it like that? Like, I realized that I don't think that they had recorded a version of "Mommy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight" when they did Walk Among Us. So that makes sense that maybe they're like, this is a great song. The only recording we have is this live version. So that makes sense. But if I'm judging it on their discography, I'm like, well, to me, it kind of kills the momentum of the album a little bit because I hate random live tracks on anything. I don't care how good of a song it is. Just do a whole album. And then you get to like Night of the Living Dead, which is also on Collection on a different recording. My problem with Night of the Living Dead on Walk Among Us is Danzig sings off key for most of the song, and it's always bothered me. I'm just like, could he not hear the key of the song? Was he having a really bad day and he was sick and couldn't hit the right note? And so it's real. It bothers me when people are like just a little bit off key, especially when there are people that can sing. Like, obviously there are plenty of bands that have shitty singers and it's fine. But in this case, he knows how to do it. But this is a song where he's off key most of the time.
Have you ever seen that YouTube remix someone did of Africa by Toto? And it's just Toto by Africa. Toto by Africa? Africa by Toto. Sorry, I'm fucking up here. This is not my episode, bro.
You know what? If you hadn't corrected that, I never would have known. It just sounded so natural. Toto by Africa.
Okay, so let me get in the zone. The video is called Africa by Toto, but the vocals are one step out of key and offbeat.
On that song, it would drive me nuts because you have that one long note.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's like one note flat and offbeat the entire time, and it is torturously bad, but so funny. So it is worth a listen just once to laugh your fucking ass off.
Yeah, that would be a good one for me to react to because it would be like nails on a chalkboard. But
it sounds like that one guy that agreed to do karaoke but gets absolutely blasted before it's his turn to get on stage.
It sounds like the Puddle of Mud version of About a Girl.
That one as well. While we're on the subject, did you see the one where it was every time? Yeah, every time he hits a high note, it goes to like half speed.
Yeah.
I need an easy friend.
I mean, that's when if you're a professional, that is when you literally have to look at yourself and go, I can't pull this off. Let's remove this song from the set that we're doing today.
The best part about that video is the guy playing the cajon knows that this is going to get memed and he's trying not to laugh.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. But anyway, back to Danzig singing off key. And then on top of that, you have a classic song like Skulls, where the collection version has way more energy. The one on Walk Among Us is a little bit, it feels like it's too slow, like we were talking about, where some songs feel like they're recorded too slow. And maybe it's because I heard the collection version of Skulls before this, but the songs that are unique to Walk Among Us are amazing. Like I love this album. But when I was ranking them, I went, oh well, if I was going to put this album together, I would choose different takes of these songs. And it's not like I'm taking unreleased, different recordings of songs. These are all released. And so like they did that thing that we don't like where you cover your own song. But I think they were done so close together. It was almost like we could probably do this better or whatever it was, whatever their reasoning was for recording a song again. But
yeah, it's a we care a lot situation.
Sure.
Where it's like, yeah.
But yeah, so that's why it's at number 3. It's an absolutely classic album, and I love listening to it whenever it comes on. But I have more gripes about this one than my top 2. So it had to go at number 3. So we matched up with Walk Among Us.
Cool. So now I'm going to answer for my crimes with my number 2.
Whatever order you want to put them in, it's do what you want.
Okay, so this is the funniest thing as well, that they're flipped around. My number 2 is Famous Monsters. We have barring our number 3, we have actually we matched up a lot more. It's just the
bottom
Danzig
2. The
stuff.
bottom 2 matched.
Yeah. Actually, my brain is just fucked this episode, bro. I'm not even drunk. I'm just processing. So my number 2, Famous Monsters. The thing I like about this era is that it sounds like metal in a major key, and that's not something I'd heard a lot of. So when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is a fun thing. Let's listen to it. And I ended up really enjoying these 2 Graves era albums because to me it's punk played through like a metal rig, and the major keys sound really anthemic on these songs. Kong at the Gates is a cool heavy intro. Forbidden Zone is an upbeat fun track to kick off the record. Lost in Space, more pounding heavier one. Dust to Dust, love the chord sequence in that one. Crawling Eye, fun up-tempo punky one with some thrash metal turnarounds in there. Witch Hunt, chugging, pounding snare drum lead punker. That's a
tagline.
Yeah. Scream. Here we go. This is where I get to talk about some band experience. I covered this song in a band in college, and there's actually footage of that. That's over on Eddie Sparxx 2. It's one of the latest videos.
I totally forgot that you had that other secret page.
Yeah, Eddie Sparxx 2. That's all my like old shit from when I was in college, just messing around. Scream, yeah, I covered it. I love the big reverb on the vocals too. It really opens up. Saturday Night, that's a doo-wop song played through a metal rig. Like I love the whole 50s vibe, which is funny because I put Project 1950 at the bottom, but you know, if it was a Graves album and made like a Graves album, it might be a different story. But yeah, where was I at? Saturday Night. Yeah, it's a fun song. Pumpkinhead, I would say it's probably because like these are the most thrash and pop metal records of their discography that it just appealed to me at the time, and they have a special place for me, even if they, from a songwriting perspective, there are a lot of cop-out techniques that I'll admit. Yeah, there are.
I mean, let's be honest with each other. If you and I took a weekend and hung out together, we could make this album.
Yeah, we could.
I mean, it wouldn't be as well produced probably, but songwriting wise, I think we could probably even do better.
Yeah, we should set ourselves a challenge, like recording an EP or even an album in a day. Rob Scallon did that. I know he did that.
It would be easy to do if one of us was with the other one, but sending files back and forth, we'd get one song done if we're lucky.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, this is for a challenge in the future, okay. Right? We both contribute 5 songs each to a music project, and like we do an Earth AD Wolf's Blood where we have 2 EPs and we just jam them together.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Let's do it. Cranked and Ranked presents the mixtape.
Before we do that, you got to put out some music on your own. I do. He's working on so much stuff, and he plays me a clip of a song, and it's always a different song, and it always sounds cool. And I'm like, man, you got to finish this shit up. At least put out a single. Put it with two tracks on it. Whatever. Throw it out there.
I will. The thing is, I never write in a consistent style, so I'm gonna have like these absolutely crazy off the wall. If Mr. Bungle was a G-funk fucking glam metal grunge thing.
That's all right. There are well-known artists out there that shift their style with everything they put out, and then and some people love it and some people don't. But
yeah, fuck it. I'll start putting them out.
If the quality is there, the people will listen.
Cool. Funnily enough, on an album that you don't agree that there is quality.
Well, no, this one had more quality. This one was the least shitty of the newer albums.
Okay, I'm back on it. Where are we at? We got Scarecrow Man. Has a pretty cool riff in it. Die Monster Die is a fun chunk of horror punk. I realized that rhymes.
I like that too. Fun chunk of horror punk.
Living Hell has a great whoa chorus. Descending Angel. Now I have to say, this is a cool song. Anthemic, like there are little gems on these albums that I think actually, songwriting wise, there are a few moments where I think actually that's pretty cool. Them is a thrashy one. Fiend Club, I'll admit is cheesy. It's very, very cheesy. But I also kind of love it. Like, in this weird alternate timeline, it does have that kind of what if Misfits started out this way, Like, what if was it?
Nobody would have cared. I'm telling you. Because you made that comment about punk through a metal filter or whatever, but like
it does have a filter on it.
In 1997, when they put out their first album with this form, you already had bands like Strung Out and Propaganda, punk bands already doing that way better than this. And so they what you're saying they were doing is literally done better by all these other bands. And so if it wasn't the Misfits, I'm telling you, you would not be talking about this album if it didn't say the Misfits on it.
There's this like it could tie into now. Bear with me. It could tie into my love for hair metal, because hair metal, depth wise, it's not a deep genre at all. Like, there are a few songs
I would say it's much deeper than these albums.
Yeah. Even I would agree, but still, I think there is a pop metal sheen to these two, and
Sure.
I think you're right that it is punk through a filter.
I'm not saying that you don't enjoy these albums, because that's a natural thing. I honestly think that you wouldn't have heard them if they were by another band.
But there's also stuff that you're saying that I just cannot argue with at the same time. It's there's moments on here where I think, yeah, he's right, but there's just part of me that can't not love it for some reason.
Well, I mean, it's the same token when we're doing the Limp Bizkit episode and somebody would say, a lot of their music is stupid, and I'd be like, well, yeah. Duh. It doesn't change the fact that I enjoy it. So that's what it all boils down to, really.
That's true. So Hunting Humans is a fun song. Helena is a good last song to end on. It's a catchy tune with a full-on thrash part in the middle. And there's a part in it that reminds me of Welcome Home Sanitarium. And I don't know if you noticed it as well. And the vocals kind of do the same kind of vocal pattern in there.
No, I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think by this point in the album, I had checked out. So I was just happy that it was almost over.
Yeah, I heard it, and it's like, kill is such a friendly word. And I was like, hello. I spotted something.
You could be right.
Yeah. But Metallica also took parts of Sanitarium from another band, so yeah.
What did they take Sanitarium from? I don't remember.
It's a really obscure thing. I think it's on it. This is where I get into like nerdy bootleg territory, but it's just one I happen to have, and it's from the Things That Should Not Be CD. I've got it here somewhere, actually. Where is it? Let me just. You know what? You can Google it. Yeah, I think it came out 94 or 95, just before Load, so it was still Black Album era. But yeah, there's a track on there I think called Critical Mass by this band. I can't remember what they're called, but they included it on there. And there's a riff in it. Like they said that they'd heard that, but the band never went anywhere or something, so they just stole it.
Oh, interesting.
Or repurposed it. Let's say stole is a strong word. And I
remember when I was really young, so I just started playing guitar, so I was probably like 13, 14, something like that. And I remember, like, I would write songs on my own and record them, at home on my double cassette deck tape player. I would just swap the tapes out and create songs on my own. But I remember I was watching an Access television show where they would have local bands play. And there was this one band on one night. I don't even remember what their name was, but they were fucking awful. And then all of a sudden in one of their songs, there was a really great riff. And I went, I'm taking it. I literally recorded it on a VCR, and then later on I went to my room and I literally took their good riff and I wrote what I thought was a much better song with it. And I was like, I'm doing the world a favor. Because that band was complete shit. I just took something good that they had and made it better. So, but I didn't give them any credit. I didn't sell any of it. It was, that was just my own bedroom tapes back in the day, which I still have. Which, if I ever became famous, I'd put out, the bedroom tapes or some shit like that.
Hey, like, in the event that you find that specific riff, can I have it? But yeah, Famous Monsters, my number 2.
Cool. My number 2.
You would refer to it as a number 2.
My number 2 is not a number 2. It's a great album, but this discography has been is weird because like when the orders that I came up with, I was just like, this feels as good as it's gonna feel. But with these top 3 albums, I'm like, I really had to like dig into like my thoughts about it to figure out where they went. But my number 2 is Static Age, which came out in '96 but was recorded in 1978, the year of my birth. The big thing about this album is that it's the slowest Misfits album. All the slowest songs they would ever write are all on Static Age.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really like about Static Age, so I said this before, like when this came out in 1996, or as part of the box set, it was a really big deal because some of the songs you had heard before, some of them were slightly different because they were on Legacy of Brutality, and Legacy of Brutality is a compilation that Glenn Danzig put out where he actually took Misfits songs and then overdubbed new guitar parts and shit of him playing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these songs, that's the way that we had heard them, Static Age and TV Casualty and shit like that. So when this came out, which was like these were as they were recorded, it was a really big deal. And I was just like, yeah, this is a fucking killer album. And I remember listening to it like tons. And I never bought the standalone version of it because I had the box set version. But the thing that I liked then and I like now is the fact that this came before the Misfits that everybody, knows and loves. But it shows like a much more varied band. Like maybe they did have a lot of influences coming and going, but it has the most dimensions of any Misfits album. Like it's almost like the only proper album. Like how I always say a proper album should have different moods and take you on a little bit of a journey. And this one, when it comes to Misfits, like it's the one that does that the best. And not to mention you get Last Caress on it, which at that point it was like, at that point, Last Caress was only on a single, and on Collection 2, which came out in 1995. And so it's always cool to hear that in an album context. But Static Age is just utterly enjoyable. And it's only at this point. I guess Jerry only was an original member of the band because I don't know why I thought it was Doyle that's on Static Age, but Static Age is Glenn Danzig and Jerry only. And then other dudes. This album does suffer a little bit from that thing where there are better versions of songs. Because the version of Teenagers from Mars on here, I don't like as much as the collection version, but the version on here is arguably better recorded. But also, like, it's got some of my favorite Misfits songs. Like, I love Come Back, but one of my favorites is Hollywood Babylon. Like, I absolutely love that song. That's just, I mean, I first heard Hollywood Babylon in, almost 30 years ago in like 1992, but still randomly, like, I'll be just cleaning the house and like in my head, I'll just, who came along for the ride? Like, it's in my head. Yeah. Like, it's a great song.
And this pretty good Danzig, dude.
Oh, thank you. And this one has Attitude, which funny enough was covered by Guns N' Roses. I don't know if it was covered. Was it covered on the Spaghetti Incident album, or is it just a live cover? Because I know they did it live. Because I remember watching a Guns N' Roses they broadcast one of their concerts in like '92, or maybe it was a little bit later on TV, and they covered Attitude by the Misfits.
Yeah, they covered it. It's on the Spaghetti Incident.
There you go. And that's a little hint. I'm going to move on from there. And then I'm not going to tell you even what it means. But and then, like I said before, the version that I know really well ends with Theme for a Jackal. But the standalone version has extra songs, which are all good songs. But I think, as much as I do enjoy this album, it's a weird feeling listening to it, because it almost makes me feel like, well, the fact that they scrapped this album, was it ever even supposed to come out? Like, And I guess initially it was a special thing just for a box set, but when they put it out as a standalone, then I'm like, oh, now they've decided that this is an actual album. So it's really weird because I've always looked at it as, you know how like if I was going to put together, a Danzig or a fucking Misfits album, god damn it, what is going on with our brains today? If I was going to put together a Misfits album, and I would take the versions of the songs I liked the best, I'd put it together and be like, well, this is great, but it's not really the album. So with Static Age, I always look at it and go, well, it's not really the album because that's not what they intended to put out. They scrapped it. So it ends up being at number 2 just because of the sheer amount of awesome shit that's on it. And for the majority of it, I just think it's utterly enjoyable. And so Static Age ends up being my number 2. And so obviously we're going to have very different number 1s, but hey, you know what? That's what this show is all about. Honestly, it gets kind of boring when we're both just like, hey, same number 1, because it's kind of anticlimactic because you kind of want to hear our different takes on why our top album is our top album. But some albums, It's just like, Eddie's all like, this album's great. And I'm like, I agree. This album's great. Huzzah. And then that's the end of the episode. But here we get to butt heads a little bit.
I was excited for this one, man, because this is exhibit A of differing lists. So obviously my number 1 pick is American Psycho. It's the first Misfits album I ever had. And I think the thing that, did you ever hear about the Christ the Conqueror thing?
I don't think so.
Right, so I went and checked it out, and it's funny. This has more in common with Christ the Conqueror, which was, I don't know if you've heard about this, they did a Christian metal band in the late 80s.
Who did? Who did?
The Jerry Only, Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, and Dr. Chud, and the Merp, and Jeff Scott Soto. No word of a lie. They did.
And they did. It's Christian metal or punk?
It's Christian metal, dude. Like that. It's even the album cover. It's like it's listed as like Christian metal, heavy metal, and even power metal.
Why? That's really weird.
But there's riffs on it that appear on American Psycho. Like, the band never really went anywhere.
What? They couldn't even write new shitty songs? They had to steal old shitty songs for this album? And it's your number 1.
It doesn't do it any favors. Yeah. But, need I say, I only found out about Christ the Conqueror retroactively afterwards when I was... Yeah, it's something, and Christ is spelled Kryst.
Fuck off. that is.
It's what? So funny. Actually, before I get to it, was it Jerry Mo the Great Only and Jeff Scott Christ the Conqueror Soto? How fucking crazy is that?
You know what? I'm probably gonna love that. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you need to check this out.
It's gonna end up being something that I legit enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I need to read the fucking the wiki intro. Christ the Conqueror, pronounced Christ, was an American Christian metal project formed in August '87 by 2 former members of the horror punk band The Misfits. The project was led by bassist Jerry Only, who adopted a new stage name, Mo the Great, or alternatively, Mocavius Christ, and his younger brother, guitarist Doyle Wolfgang from Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. The band fused fantastical and sci-fi imagery with religious themes and messages. The band has also been referred to as a guitar shop project, as only Doyle and Only constantly tweaked and refined their instruments throughout the band's existence in an attempt to create what they felt would be the ultimate bass and guitar.
God
So
damn,
essentially,
this album is not on Apple Music. God damn it.
yeah, it's pretty underground, bro.
I'm gonna have to head to the YouTubes for this, but that is.
I'll mail you a tape.
Okay. make sure you dub it onto another cassette that's been recorded on several times.
All right, so back to American Psycho.
This makes this album even more interesting to me because I'm just like they some of this came from a Christian metal project.
Dude, where is it? Right. Dude, like, to be honest, the artwork on it is badass. It's like something from fucking He-Man. Where was the actual... Because they did an EP, but the actual album, the full album, was unreleased. And Christ the Conqueror, the opening song, is the same intro as Abominable Dr.
So they didn't even release this. It just leaked somehow.
Yeah, well, they did an EP, which was released...
Okay.
In 1990, but the album, the full album, it was a Static Age situation.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, without further ado,
because they heard the first album from Danzig and they were like, we can't put this shit out when he's putting out stuff like that.
Oh man, right, okay. Now I have to try to defend this.
I love this. I almost feel kind of bad. Like I don't want you to feel this way. I want you to be happy with your choice.
Honestly, I'm just hamming it up for comedic effect. Don't let on.
All right.
Okay. Here
I'll edit that part out, maybe.
Okay. Right. Nah, leave it in. It's comedic effect, bro.
All right.
Okay.
That was for the Patreon people that pay extra. All you got to pay is your time.
You get little ASMR segments throughout the show. Okay, right. Abominable Dr. Phibes. Cool. Doomy metal intro. American Psycho. Catchy, thrashy punk song. Speak of the Devil. Infectiously catchy. Walk Among Us is an unrelenting driving rocker. The Hunger, metal riffs played in a punky way. As an L7 fan, me likey, although I would imagine L7 may or may not like being compared to this.
I'm sure they're fine with it.
Yeah. From Hell They Came, I actually really love heavy stuff like this with uplifting major key vocals. Dig Up Her Bones is a fucking 5-star song. From this point on, Dig Up Her Bones is an anthem, according to Eddie Sparxx. Okay. I even covered it in the same band that I covered Scream in back in college. Black Light is a fun song. Resurrection. There is something about this album that puts me in a good mood. Like, probably because it's pop punk disguised as metal, and I've finally come to terms with the fact that there are actually pop punk bands I like. And I was just afraid to admit it for years. This Island Earth is another fun song. I like the harmonies and the vocals. Crimson Ghost, love the big traditional metal intro. Gave me Maiden vibes before erupting into a thrash metal kind of thing. Day of the Dead, there's a lot of 50s rock and roll in their songwriting, evidenced by Project 1950. But, I hear a lot of it in this song. The Haunting, whoa, I just put like a shit ton of woes in there. Mars Attacks, again, is an 80s metal track disguised as punk. Those turnarounds are that's Maiden influence. Hate the Living, Love the Dead, fun track. Some grungy sex type thing, harmonic neck slides in there, kind of stuff. Shining, rockin' tune. Don't Open Till Doomsday, fun chorus in this track. And the bonus track, Hell Night, is fun too. I love this album. It scratches an itch for me that nothing else quite does from what I've heard. It's heavy and raw, but uplifting and lighthearted. So I guess that's what I kind of initially heard from the Misfits and subsequently came to them for.
Yeah.
I think that's why I took to the Graves stuff a little easier, because for me it's got that party vibe to it, and it's not very deep, but it's fun, switch your brain off kind of music. And as a big hair metal fan, I enjoy that aspect.
Yeah.
So yeah, over to you.
Awesome. So if you've been keeping track, it's no surprise. My number one is Earth AD / Wolf's Blood. God damn it, I can't even say that.
That was a Dr. Steve Brule moment there. But I love shit like that.
So yeah, I just refer to it as Earth AD whenever I talk about it, and I don't know if this is a term that I heard somebody say or if I thought of it on my own. If I did think of it on my own, then I'm a genius. But to me, Earth AD is the Rain and Blood of punk. Like, it is.
Yes.
Short.
I agree.
And fast and aggressive, and then it's over. And even shorter than Rain and Blood. But I think that this, from beginning to end, is a fucking killer album. To me, it's their most, like, it's the only album that they officially released as an album that I just think is absolutely perfect from beginning to end. There's no track that has a better version that I like. And I'm referring to the original version, so it doesn't have the Die Die My Darling EP on it, although I like those songs too. But I think Die Die My Darling kind of ruins the momentum of this album, so I don't think it needs to be on here at all. But just the fact that this has like Green Hell and Demonomania and stuff like that on it, and the fact that it takes the Misfits style, but it's more hardcore punk, than it's not, the sing-along parts are shout-alongs now. Instead of woes and singing parts, it's shouting along. And on top of that, it's got fucking Robo on drums. And Robo is a guy that, as far as I know, he hasn't played drums in years. But to be completely honest, if you play drums on Earth AD and Damaged by Black Flag, your story is already well written. It's like, because he was just a dude that, like, if you watch footage of Robo playing, he wasn't flashy. He was just like a fast, like, was it Phil Rudd from AC/DC? Is that his name? Yeah. He was like a fast Phil Rudd. He just played really fast and everything was real basic, but he's just one of those dudes that, like, I'm all like, I just liked his energy, and he's perfect for this fast shit, like on Earth AD. And this is my go-to Misfits album, just because it's fucking killer and short, and then you're done. Like, you just, you play the whole fucking thing again. But I just really like, for some reason, this, like, scratches some kind of itch for me. It's kind of like, there's a Minor Threat, the Out of Step album. Yeah. It's just, there's something about just sort of pure aggression that just feels so, like, it's such a great release of energy, and without being overdone. Like an album like Earth AD, it's not awful sounding, but it's not super well produced. So it almost sounds like the band had these songs and they just had to get them out, and then boom, they're out, and then there's an album. And I like that, and like I said before, the legend and mystique of what was Misfits, it was just, when I was younger, it was just so fascinating, and it really did feel like you were discovering, even though, I was discovering them later than a lot of people because I got on board because of Metallica. It still had that feeling that I was discovering this for the first time on my own. And this is moving away from Earth AD. Earth AD is my number one, but the Misfits album that I listen to more than anything is the first collection album. And I think that's fucking perfect. And it does have, Green Hell and some other Earth AD tracks on it. But this music is just like, it's been with me for years and years and years. And I just love the rawness and it almost feels like it could have been completely awful music if they had maybe the wrong vocalist, you know. And that's an interesting thing about Misfits is that, like, you know, people love their music, but if you really break it down, like if you take Glenn Danzig out of it, as much as people want to hate on Glenn Danzig because he's, you know, kind of difficult at times, if you take him away from it, there's no like really awesome riffs, you know. There's some cool little parts here and there, but for the most part, it's like I don't know. I just think that I think that's probably why I'm so tied to the Danzig era, because I really do feel like even from the get-go, no matter who was in the project, it was Glenn Danzig's project.
Yeah.
And even though like I'm not really a Danzig fan anymore, I mean, I loved the Sam Hain albums and I loved all the early Danzig albums, and randomly I like other Danzig stuff. But Earth AD is just one of those albums that's just, I think is just perfect for exactly what it is and exactly how it sounds. And yeah, and then that was originally that was the end of the Misfits, except for, you know, Danzig putting out collections and what do you even call that if you just overdub guitars on top of something? It's just retweaked or something, versions of Misfits songs.
I mean, I suppose Dave Mustaine did that and called it a remaster, so.
Oh, God. That's not, yeah. I really do think, though, because the production on a lot of modern Danzig stuff is so awful, I'm just like, if he would pull a Dave Mustaine where he finally goes, we're going to finally release the first 4 Danzig albums on vinyl, but we've remixed them because Danzig has a vision, and it's just going to be the most awful sounding shit you've ever heard. I wouldn't put it past him. But anyway, talking about the Misfits, I love the Misfits Danzig era. Apparently, you know, it doesn't need to be said anymore what I feel about later Misfits, because I made myself very clear.
It's like that scene from The Simpsons where Homer just starts wailing on that guy and that kid starts crying. He's like, stop, he's already dead.
You know, but at the end of the day, I'm just one asshole, and my opinion doesn't fucking mean anything. If you're a fan of Michael Graves' era Misfits, or even if you're a fan of The Devil's Reign, you know, more power to you. You enjoy what you enjoy. And honestly, I think that when it comes to a band like the Misfits, like that is a really great example of just enjoy it. Like, you know, you can't really dig very deep into this music. You know, it is what it is, and you enjoy it or you don't enjoy it. And so it makes absolute sense. It's just that, you know, this is a really good example of the differences in age between Eddie and I and where we came in to this band. So that was interesting. That was our Misfits ranking. And that was pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
So Peanut Butter Platypus to those of you that are still here. And if you're confused about what I mean by that, I say that it's a secret phrase that I created because I guess that's the first thing that came to my head. That I say so the people that listen to our episodes all the way through, it's kind of like it's like a greeting or a secret handshake. If you put in the comments Peanut Butter Platypus, I know that you made it at least like an hour and a half into our shit. And I appreciate it. You peanut butter. Oh, never mind.
Peanut blub.
I'm done. You talk.
Until they penis blooded.
All right. Well, that just like the Misfits, we should just wrap it up and get out of here. So
that was gross.
Do you have any last words before we get the fuck out of here?
If you did in fact penis blooded, go to the fucking clinic.
Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I ain't a doctor.
I mean, do you have anything else to say?
Nah.
Awesome. So, thanks everyone for listening. We're going to be back next week. Honestly, with another fun one. Like, to me, it's going to be another discography that's going to be pretty fun to dig into. But it's actually going to be our first special two-parter.
Yes.
Because normally when we have an episode that is more than one part, it's because there's a large discography for whatever band it is we're talking about. But in this particular case, I'm not throwing out any hints about who it is, but we're going to do an episode of ranking and then a special episode on top of that is related to that artist. And no, it's not grooved and removed or anything to that. It's actually something we've never done before, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But next week, you're going to get the ranking of said band. And so join us then, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You got something to say?
I was going to say, would that come under the... Would that come under the whole... the slashed and mashed? Would we consider that a slashed and mashed?
Are we... I don't... Let's not... We might.
I tell you what. If need be, you can bleep whatever I'm saying right now in post. But are we gonna grant it the name Slashed and Mashed?
I think we might, because our good friend, was it Eric Smith? Was that his name?
Yeah.
I'm bad with names, and I apologize. I don't even.
We said it earlier in the episode. You got your shout out, okay?
Yeah, I have cousins that I don't even know their names. I can't remember them because that's how shitty I am with names. Anyway, so we're whispering this part, so like not many people will hear it, but yeah, I think we will be taking his suggested name of Slashed and Mashed. So there you go.
That will be happening.
You heard it here, folks, ladies. And first, fuck, I'm getting the fuck out of here. All right, before my brain completely shits itself, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. And I mean, Eddie's gonna get out of here too, because once I end the meeting, this is all over. But thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. And I can't even do a goddamn outro.
This is cursed, man. We're stuck here. This is never-ending podcast.
If this is the last one we ever did, what a shitty ending this is. This is like just as bad as the Devil's Reign.
Devil's Reign.
Anyway, as I was going to say, as usual, at the end of the episode, I will throw it over to Mr. Edward Sparxx in order to take us out.
Whoa! Later, dude!
Bye.
Bye.